Hello. Welcome back to episode 28 of the Intern's Oddities from Around the World. Today, we will be going off of our previous episode from this week of The Uncanny Earth. This Uncanny Earth, to be more specific. We all know we live on The Uncanny Earth. This Uncanny Earth is our podcast, though. Much more enjoyable. This Uncanny Earth is much more enjoyable than The Uncanny Earth. The Uncanny Earth can actually be kind of terrifying. But anyways, we're going off of cults again to kind of mirror the main show. And this week, I will be discussing a list of intriguing cults that I found online when I was doing my research. And we had an extra long episode, so there was some stuff that I wanted to talk about that we didn't really have time to get to. And we can't have like an 8-hour episode, so we're gonna break it down into some other areas. So here's where we're gonna start at today. So I found this website, and it talks about 16 infamous cults in history. So I wanted to go through this list with everybody, and because I thought some of these sounded pretty interesting, and a lot of them were more obscure and a lot that I had never heard of. So let's go ahead and go through this together. So that's just talking about cults in general. We're gonna, breeze over that. So the first one is the Hashishin. Now this says, here is an artistic depiction. If you can see this right here, looks like a person riding a horse with a sword. All right. Now, when European crusaders and later Marco Polo returned to Europe after their adventures and exploits in the Muslim world, they carried with them stories of a group of guerrilla fighters known as the Hashishin. Okay? Hashishin. Keep that in mind. It sounds like a few different things. This one was actually pretty funny. I thought this one was pretty interesting. Marco Polo had actually misunderstood the word assassins and interpreted it as being Hashishin, referring to hashish, more commonly known as marijuana. So they were people that would kill you with plants, I guess. I don't know. That was just a funny mistranslation. I thought that was a really funny mistranslation. The assassins were a group of Nizari Ismail Muslims, a splinter group from the Shia sect that formed in response to the First Crusade. Today, their name, which arrives from the Arabic word for principal, refers to somebody who kills a target in cold blood. The assassins were based in Alamet, Iran, and Masyaf, Syria. Oh, interesting. Masyaf, Syria. I didn't realize that was in Syria. I didn't even realize that was a real place. Masyaf is where the Assassin's headquarters is located in Assassin's Creed 1. So I always knew they did, tried to be as historically accurate as they could be, but that's pretty good. That's pretty good historical accuracy for the Assassin's Creed games right there. Hey, the Assassin's Creed 2 got me through high school. Got me through my high school history class. The order was led by a grand imam, as it was first a religious order, though they largely deviate from the mainstream teachings of Islam. As we were talking about the imams the other day, this is kind of sounding very similar to the Alawites to me. This is kind of reminding me of the Alawites at this point. Now, the agents in the order were called upon to engage in what the leaders called self-sacrifice. In other words, they were to engage in guerrilla warfare and even target specific people for assassination at the risk of their own lives. They were highly trained and well-read so that they could blend in with their enemy's surroundings, even speaking different languages if necessary. They struck fear in the hearts of both the European Crusaders and their fellow Muslims. So it sounds like the Assassin's Creed video games actually did get quite a bit of stuff right after reading about this. So I wonder if this might actually be the inspiration for assassins, like in general, not just in the video game, but like as a community. Let's call it a community, And if anyone wanted to go read this stuff on their own, the website is historycollection.com. And the article is 16 Infamous Cults in History. All right, let's continue. Number 15, Adolfo Costanzo's Santeria cult. And here's a picture of Adolfo Costanzo that they sourced from YouTube, it looks like. Adolfo Costanzo was born in Miami in 1962 and grew up with a traditional Roman Catholic religion. However, he had a fascination with the Santeria religion, a syncretism of Voodoo and Roman Catholicism that he may have inherited from his mother and grandmother, both believed to be Santeria priestesses. Costanzo became involved with some of the darker occultish aspects of Santeria, a side that many followers disavow. After training with the Santeria sorcerer, he moved to Mexico City and established himself with the local drug lords and crime syndicates. He charged the leaders exorbitant prices, thousands of dollars, to perform Santeria rituals that would guarantee their safety, particularly from their enemies and the police. Oh, so he's kind of like a religious version of Scarface, it sounds like. Costanzo's followers worshipped him as if he was a god. Some of the people who followed him found that they were becoming powerful within their cartels, and he tried to extract more money from them, as well as positions of power for his own self. I would have used himself, but not my article. Anyways, when people refused, they would mysteriously disappear. When police eventually found the bodies of people he had killed, what came to light is that he had dismembered many people and used their body parts in his rituals to strengthen his own powers. The official count of people he killed is 23, but it may be as high as 4 dozen. Wow. That got dark. So this dude would like dismember people and then use their severed limbs in his rituals. That's pretty dark and brutal. I bet he fit in right along with the drug lords. Number 14, the Japanese cult of the emperor. All throughout history, there have been entire civilizations and religions built upon the worship of a monarch. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was worshipped as a god, believed to be a reincarnation of the sun Iris and Osiris, the god Horus. Many of the ancient Roman emperors, such as Nero and Caligula, claimed that they were divine and required people in the empire to burn incense to them as a ritual act of worship. Likewise, in Imperial Japan, the emperor was worshipped as if he was a manifestation of the divine. And my understanding is that Japan, a large aspect of their religious beliefs of the common people in Japan, my understanding is that a lot of them practice Shintoism, which is the belief that everything has a spirit. Even inanimate objects have a spirit. Like this webcam, they would say that this webcam has a spirit, or my speakers have spirits, whatever. Everything has spirits, even inanimate objects. So, I could easily see why they may worship an emperor as a god. Emperor Hirohito, who is the last emperor of Japan, reigned in the years leading up to and during World War II. Ooh, that's a bad time to be the leader. He reinvigorated the Shinto belief, see, as I was saying a second ago, that the emperor was the connection between heaven and earth and a descendant of the goddess Amaterasu. That is interesting because I think... Hang on, let me look this up real quick, actually. Sorry, let me look this up while we're here so I don't mess up. Because I think this might actually... Okay. There is a global energy monitor over here. Let me pull up this page real quick. Okay, I found a Wikipedia page that says Amaterasu Shiraisi Solar Farm is a solar photovoltaic farm under construction in Shiroshi City, Miyagi Prefecture, Japan. So they're making a solar farm in Japan with the name Amaterasu. Because I thought I remembered hearing something about that in Japan. So that was pretty cool. I like that. I like that they gave it that name. And what I was personally another thing about Amaterasu is, if anyone is a fan of anime, there's an anime called Fire Force. It actually just came back for a new season, but the reason I wanted to mention that is because in that anime they actually had a power plant which they called Amaterasu, and it's interesting that they're building a solar farm named Amaterasu in the real world in Japan. I think, and I'm wondering if maybe the anime was trying to reference that solar farm that they're going to be building in Japan. Anyways, let's continue. His religious and political mission, given to him by heaven, was the expansion of Japan and defeat of the Western forces that tried to dismantle the Japanese Empire. Many of his followers swore such a high level of allegiance to him that they strapped themselves into glider-like planes and dive-bombed into American warships stationed in the Pacific. They were known as kamikazes. The word literally translates as divine wind, because they were sacrificing their lives for their emperor god. Then you got the Manson family. Everyone already knows about them, so we'll skip over them. The Freemasons. Now, I feel like a lot of people know about these, but I always find this interesting no matter how many times I study it, so I'm going to go ahead and read this one again for us. So this photo is print from 1870 portraying George Washington as master of his lodge in Wikimedia. Because there's a lot of controversy between the Freemasons and the Illuminati, which are coming up next. And I wanted to read both of those. And because I've always been under the impression that many people believe that the Freemasons are the Illuminati. So I have always been curious what the difference actually is. So let's find out together. Freemasonry is something that is difficult to understand. The Freemasons are a secret society that doesn't necessarily have a creed, as far as people on the outside are aware, although there are plenty of conspiracy theorists who believe that there is a creed. Freemason rituals, such as initiation rituals, are dramatic and filled with symbolic meaning, but they aren't known to be particularly evil or sinister. They instead make Freemasonry look like its own quasi-religious group. George Washington was a leader of a Masonic lodge, and many other of America's founders were known to be Freemasons. Innocent enough, right? I don't know if this is true or not, to be fair. Get that as it is a disclaimer before I say this, but I have heard some conspiracy theories and rumors that even as recent as George Bush were possibly Freemasons. But I don't know the validity of those claims. I believe they are conspiracy theories. The challenge is in the crimes throughout history that seem to be somehow linked to the Freemasons. In 1833, John Quincy Adams wrote, "I do conscientiously and sincerely believe that the order of Freemasonry, if not the greatest, is one of the greatest moral and political evils under which the Union is now laboring." Conspiracy theories suggest that Freemasonry is associated with the occult, that it engages in mind control or other similar activities, and that it is satanic. And just to get this out here real quick, Satanism does have offshoots that worship Satan, yes. But Satanism, as it was originally founded by Anton LaVey back in the early days of Satanism when it was first established, it was more about freedom and doing what you want. And it was never truly supposed to be about Lucifer or Satan himself. It was supposed to be about freedom. And a large part of it, honestly, was most likely to mock religion, which is why they called it Satanism. But it was never, from my understanding, when it was originally founded by Anton LaVey back in the day, it was originally never intended to be worship of Satan. That is something that they came up with later on in more modern offshoots. But anyways, that's another tangent for another time. One belief held by many who are not Freemasons is that Freemasonry requires allegiance to a Masonic god, one that falls outside of the mainstream of religion. Okay, and for pop culture, The Simpsons and Family Guy, amongst many others, have actually done special episodes all about the Freemasons. Family Guy had an episode where the son Chris went off to college and or like a private school or something. I think it was a private school. And he was being bullied by the other students, so they had him join what they called the Organization of Skull and Bones, which my understanding was supposed to be a representation of the Freemasons. And they made him do some, let's just say, some weird stuff, and we'll leave it at that. Now, the Illuminati. This is a picture, according to the script right here. It says Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati. Okay. No single group in history, cult or not, has the notoriety and infamy of the Illuminati. Many believe that its members are compelling people who are behind every major event that happens in the world today. The origins of the Illuminati, however, are a bit less dramatic than the modern perception. The group was founded in Bavaria in 1776 as a consortium of Enlightenment thinkers who opposed the abuses of the monarchy, the control that the religion had over the masses, and all forms of superstition. The group was outlawed a few years ago, but its members were believed to continue underground and were blamed for the French Revolution that broke out in 1789. Today, the Illuminati is at the center of the New World Order conspiracy theory, which suggests that they are orchestrating all significant events to gain world domination through a secret world government. Okay, full disclosure. I believe in the Illuminati. And get your tinfoil hats on, because I believe there's a misconception about the Illuminati. I believe the Illuminati is not even humans or people. The Illuminati is basically Skynet. I believe that they created AIs based on the personalities of 12 influential figures throughout history. And I believe that these 12 AIs that they have created based on the personalities of these figures are what we know as the Illuminati. And these 12 people, or 12 AI, are the ones who are doing all the secret stuff behind the scenes, trying to seek world domination. And the conspiracy theory about the deep state, I think the deep state is actually an offshoot of original members that used to be part of the Illuminati, and then there was a schism that happened, and they split off. And the Illuminati and the deep state are both exactly what all the conspiracies say they are. But here's the difference. I believe that the Illuminati had a schism with former members who broke off to form the deep state, and the deep state is a separate entity from the Illuminati with different ideals. Some indicated that the Illuminati supported both the Capital West and the Communist East during the Cold War as a means of dividing the world. And there's a whole lot more we could go into on that one. Elite fraternal organizations, such as Yale's notorious Skull and Bones fraternity. Okay, so yeah, that's the one I was talking about a minute ago from that they did in Family Guy. So that was a real thing. Okay. Are believed to be the fronts for the Illuminati. It's unclear if these conspiracies have any substance, but even if the Illuminati cannot in itself be considered a cult, it has gathered a cult-like following of conspiracy theorists. The Moonies. Now, this one is actually really interesting to me personally, and this was one of the cults that I was initially going to do on the episode, but I cut out for time. So I will most likely be going deeper into the Moonies at some point in the near future in a separate video. So we'll kind of go over this a little bit, but I'm going to go much, much deeper into this at some point in the near future. You may not have heard of the Unification Church, but you have probably heard of a group during the freewheeling 1960s and 70s called the Moonies. The Moonies were followers of Sun Myung Moon, who claimed that Jesus had invited him to finish his mission on Earth by arranging mass weddings among complete strangers to create pure families. In 1954, he formed the Unification Church in Seoul, South Korea. It was a blend of shamanism, Christianity, anti-communism, and Confucianism. Ooh, I like Confucianism. That's a good one. The message of the church was to achieve world peace by creating pure families through marriages. Some of the marriages were between individuals who might have never even met each other. I'm not saying have never even met each other. No, I'm not going to say that. Such as one between a 71-year-old Catholic archbishop from Africa and a 43-year-old acupuncturist from Korea. The couples were forbidden to consummate their marriage for 40 days to prove that their marriage was about more than sex. In 1988, when Moon married 6,516 people in one mass ceremony, he entered the Guinness Book of World Records. When the movement spread to the United States, many parents became outraged that he brainwashed their children, many of whom were teenagers or in college, to sell all of their possessions to him and enter into a scandalous marriage with a stranger. Yeah, that one is definitely, that one's going to be interesting. We're going to get deeper into that at some other point. Number 9, the People's Temple. So we're making progress, moving right on along here. All right, the People's Temple. When Jim Jones founded the People's Temple of the Disciples of Christ in 1955, oh, Jim Jones. Okay, we know where this is headed. I think that's the one that did Heaven's Gate, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to look that up real quick. Sorry. I just like to fact check myself. So, he did the People's Temple. That was Jonestown, okay. Jim Jones was the one at Jonestown. Okay. I see, that's why we did this on stream, so that I'm correcting myself live in real time. It was Jonestown, not Heaven's Gate. I apologize. When Jim Jones founded the temple, many people viewed it as an egalitarian project through which people could truly live out the message of the gospel by living in the community and sharing everything they had. However, Jim Jones, not to be confused with Mike Jones, was actually a dedicated Marxist and founded his church as a means of infiltrating Christianity with communism. The church grew quickly under the premise that its members were social justice activists. Even the members themselves had no idea that they were part of a much more sinister agenda. So wait, you're telling me they were just Twitter users? In 1974, Jim Jones leased land in Guyana for a project that he termed Jonestown. That's the one I was thinking of. The commune was to be a completely self-contained socialist community in which the members grew their own food and met their needs. It evolved over the next few years as members of the church moved to South America to continue living out their social justice dreams. However, Jones' drug-induced mania led him to turn from the charming pastor that they had loved into a ruthless dictator. In November 1978, he and the leaders of People's Temple forced everyone at Jonestown to drink Kool-Aid that had been laced with cyanide. 918 people, including 276 children, died. Number 8. The Branch Davidians. Fire at the Branch Davidian compound in Waco of Port William is what they say this picture is supposed to represent. Looks like a flag of some sort to me. Anyways. David Koresh was a troubled youth who was kicked out of his mother's church for insisting that God had ordered him to marry the pastor's daughter. Wait, what? What? He went on to join the Branch Davidian cult in Waco, Texas, where he pursued the founder's 65-year-old wife, claiming that God had told him to father a child with her. What is going on with this man? He's just using this as an excuse. Koresh soon lost interest in her and set his sights on a 14-year-old girl who consented to marry him. Well, that's inappropriate. He and his wife had a fallout with the founder and led members of the Branch Davidians to live in tents and buses 90 miles away in Palestine, Texas. When the founder died, he gained control of the entire group in Waco. Wow. The group's members engaged in behavior that would be considered disturbing at best, such as exhuming corpses in an attempt to resurrect the dead. This man was crazy. However, what would make the group go down in history was when federal agents surrounded the Waco compound with a warrant for illegal firearms. A 4-hour gunfight ensued, followed by a 51-day siege in which none of the federal agents apprehended that the cult members believed that they were doing God's will. The compound caught on fire and 76 people were killed. And I believe we talked about that one a long time ago, back in some of our earlier episodes of This Uncanny Earth. I think Rob and Spider talked about that one in detail. More detail. Then Heaven's Gate. Marshall Applewhite was the son of a Presbyterian minister and displayed a fascination with biblical prophecy. During a stay at a psychiatric hospital in 1972, he met Bonnie Nettles, a nurse there who also showed a keen interest in biblical mysticism, with an extraterrestrial flair. She told Applewhite that aliens had said to her that they would meet and concluded that he had a divine mission to fulfill. Over the next few years, the two would solidify different esoteric belief systems into a UFO-based cult, which would gain about 41 followers over the next 2 decades. The meetings that they held were centered around trying to contact aliens. In 1975, members of the group sold all of their possessions and effectively disappeared. Applewhite and Nettles toured the country under various aliases and preached a message of higher evolutionary transformation through contact with extraterrestrials. They even purchased alien abduction insurance, which would cover up to 50 people with $1 million each. So if you get abducted by aliens, they'll give you $1 million. On the night of March 19th, 1997, convinced that the Hale-Bopp comet was passing through with a UFO that they would board and thereby achieve a higher level of consciousness, all the members of Heaven's Gate committed mass suicide. The bodies would not be discovered for a full week. That's the one I was thinking of. Okay, so I got the Heaven's Gate and Jonestown. I got those mixed up and mixed together in my mind. Okay. The Shinrikyo. Ooh, I like this one. Not like what they did, but like this is one of the most interesting ones to me. This one, okay. I think I'm going to read about it and then I'll say what I wanted to say. Shinrikyo was a Japanese doomsday cult led by Shogo Asahara. It operated under the front of being a yoga-style organization, and its teachings were a conglomeration of Buddhist, Hindu, and apocalyptic beliefs. However, the message was preached by Asahara was that anyone outside of the cult was doomed to go to hell. The only way for them to be saved was to be killed by members of Shinrikyo, thereby elevating them to a higher spiritual state. The group operated its own research and development center, where its members amassed firearms and prepared chemical weapons. On March 20th, 1995, the members of the cult boarded the Tokyo subways at rush hour with bags containing the nerve agent known as sarin. They punctured the bags, and within seconds, people on the subway began vomiting and choking. A total of 13 people died, and many more were injured in what was the worst terrorist attack in Japan's modern history. Just let that soak in for a moment, okay? If any of you live in America, just let that soak in for a moment. You know the kind of stuff that happens here in America, and you know dozens upon dozens of people. You see where I'm headed with this? 13 people, 13 victims in this particular incident. And that was the worst terrorist attack in Japan's modern history, was 13 victims. I'm not going to go out of my way to look up anything right now, but I guarantee you could very easily and very quickly find dozens upon dozens of cases in America's modern history, in the United States modern history, that has a lot more than 13 people. A lot more. And I'm just going to leave it at that. The cult members later tried, unsuccessfully, to release hydrogen cyanide into crowded subway stations. At least 7 members of Aum Shinryoku have been executed by hanging for the attacks. Today, Aum Shinryoku is still in existence and has many followers, though its members claim that they no longer hold to the violent ideology of Shogo Asahara. Of course they wouldn't admit to it. They're trying to do it in secret. But this whole thing reminded me of something when I was reading it, and that's what I wanted to say a minute ago. Sleeping Dogs. It is one of my favorite games. It is absolutely amazing. I've played through the entire game probably like 5 times. At least 5 times. And when I say played through the entire game, I mean did all the side missions, all the main missions, to the point where the only thing I hadn't done was like racing missions and a few things like that. But like I did all the side content, all the main content. I loved it. I really did. And in one of the DLC for that game, or you get the DLC if you get the definitive edition of the game, but they had a group in the game that came out during Chinese New Year's, and I don't have to get into it because this is what they did. In the Sleeping Dogs video game, they had a group come out and threaten everybody and tell them that they were going to fill the entire city up with poisonous gas. And you literally, the whole mission was about tracking down this cult group. Yes, it was a cult group. And finding out where they had hidden the poison gas and getting rid of it before they could set off the poison bombs. So I am, after reading about the Aum Shinrikyo, I am 100% convinced that that particular mission for Sleeping Dogs was all about the Aum Shinrikyo. And that was a really fun game if you've never played it. Now, let's continue. Number 5, the Order of the Solar Temple. Now, we didn't put this in the show, but Rob was telling me to look into this one, so I might put this on another episode at some point in the future with some more details. And the Aum Shinrikyo, I should definitely put them on in the future. Look a little deeper into them, because that one is really interesting to me. The Order of the Solar Temple was an esoteric cult that merged Gnosticism, alien beliefs, the occult, and other out-of-mainstream elements to create a creed that centered on establishing a correct order of authority and power. The members believed that they were heralding the second coming of Jesus Christ, as well as creating a unified belief system for both Christianity and Islam. The Order of the Solar Temple was primarily regarded as a secret society, mainly based in Switzerland and France, and few people outside of its cloisters had access to information about its goings-on. In October 1994, one of the cult's leaders, Joseph D. Mambro, ordered the murder of a 3-month-old boy because he believed that the infant was the Antichrist. Huh? What? Born into the group to keep D. Mambrio from becoming the leader. Even more. Huh? What? He then held a ritual Last Supper just a few days before different groups of the Order of the Solar Temple began committing mass suicide. Some groups committed suicide in chapels that were adorned with symbology of the Knights Templar, suggesting that the mass suicides were rituals ordered as part of the cult's religious beliefs. In some cases, the buildings where they committed suicide were set to detonate so that the souls of the deceased would be purified with fire. The mass suicides continued for 3 years. Oh, wow. That is a good one. Yeah, I might look deeper into that one because that one's pretty interesting too. The Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was a polygamous cult founded by Warren Jeffs, a charismatic Mormon leader. Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, the founder and an early leader of Mormonism, believed that polygamy was necessary to produce as many offspring as possible. However, in 1890, the Mormons officially disavowed polygamy and in 1935 excommunicated clergy who still advocated it. However, the polygamous faction of Mormonism never entirely went away. The Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or FLDS for short, operated mostly under the radar of both federal authorities and the mainstream Mormon Church. Warren Jeffs was a leader or prophet of one of the FLDS groups. His father, Rulon Jeffs, had previously led the group and married a total of 75 women who bore him 60 children. Allegations soon began to spread that under Jeffs, underage girls were being forced into marriage, as well as reports of crimes such as rape and incest. Oh, I bet this is where they take him down, isn't it? In April 2008, Texas Child Services raided the FLDS compound and brought 439 children into protective care. 439. Many of them had already been married, and some of the girls already had children of their own. Many men were arrested for sexually assaulting children, including children to whom they had been spiritually married. Well, that's gross. The movement for the restoration of the 10 Commandments of God. Oh, I saw something about this the other day. This one is just, yeah, this one's a bit much for me personally. In 1989, in Uganda, a man named Paulo Kashakun met Joseph Kibwetati, both of whom claimed to have seen images from God. The visions consisted of things like the Virgin Mary and Jesus Christ. Besides, Kashakun reported sights of his deceased daughter. Together, they formed a breakaway religious movement that they called the Movement for the Restoration of the 10 Commandments of God. The 10 Commandments figured heavily into the group's ideology, as did the apocalyptic belief that the world would end at midnight at the dawn of the year 2000, which, by the way, that was like their 4th or 5th prediction on when the world would end. They had already postponed it like 3 or 4 times before that. So, just to give you an idea of what kind of people they were, like the leaders of the group. The group gained many followers who were dissatisfied with the Roman Catholic Church in Uganda, but when January 1st, 2000 came and went without anything remarkable happening, the group began to unravel. The leaders set new dates for when the end of the world would come, but it still didn't happen. March 17th, 2000 became a modern predicted day of the apocalypse, and on that day, those who were still faithful gathered in a church to pray. The church was set on fire by Kibwetati, and 530 people died. Hundreds more were killed when he threw them into wells or killed them through other means. All told, 778 people died. So basically, at the end of it all, he was like, you know what? If they're not gonna believe in me, and if I got to do something to make people believe in me, and well, yeah, he decided to get rid of 778 people to try to convince other people to believe in him. Bit crazy. Just gotta say. 2. The Cult of Kali. Oh, this is the one from Indiana Jones. Yep. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is based loosely on the Cult of Kali. It is a Hindu cult. Okay. In the movie, Indiana Jones and his band of sidekicks have to infiltrate a temple dedicated to the worship of Kali, where people are gruesomely killed. Kali is a Hindu goddess who worshippers believe demands human sacrifice. The Thugi, Thugi, were a band of Hindu and, surprisingly, Muslim assassins who would strangle people so that they could offer them up as sacrifices to Kali. The purpose of strangling was to make sure that not a drop of blood would be spilled so that all of it could be offered to Kali. Under the British imperial rule in India, a concerted effort was made to stamp out the Thugi, who were terrorizing people all throughout the country. Their primary weapon of choice was the garrote, but they soon turned to use yellow scarves that they could carry on their persons. They were responsible for as many as 2 million deaths over at least 450 years of their existence. Interesting that they say yellow scarves, because I see a few modern gangs, like gangsters, gang members, using yellow scarves. So that stood out to me. What remains largely under speculation is why so many Muslims joined the Thugi when Islam explicitly affirms the oneness of God and is incompatible with the polytheism of Hinduism. Nevertheless, today we refer to bandits and robbers as thugs after the Thugi. Okay, so that's why it looked like that. So see, if anyone wanted to know the origins of the word thug, there you go. You just learned the origins of the word thug. Good job. Children of God. In the 1960s, David Berg formed what just may be the most notorious, infamous cult in American history, the Children of God. Oh, I haven't actually heard of this one before. The group's teachings blended ecstatic worship of Jesus Christ with promiscuous sex. In fact, one of the group's evangelistic techniques during the 1970s was something called flirty fishing. In flirty fishing, female members of the cult were encouraged to win over potential converts by having sex with them. Well then, that's one way to get someone to believe in what you believe, I suppose. They often worked as working girls in escort agencies. The belief was that people could receive God's gift of salvation by having sex with members of the Children of God. Oh, okay. The darker side of Children of God was that the promiscuous sex was not limited to consenting adults. Children who grew up in the cult were frequently raped. Oh. The late actor River Phoenix grew up in the cult, and he claimed that the first time he was forced to have sex, he was 4 years old. Additionally, the children were discouraged from attending school as they should eschew the world to earn the favor of God. After all, the apocalypse was coming. Isn't it always? In 1993, Interpol and the CIA finally began investigating the allegations of sexual abuse made against David Berg. He died the next year, but the cult continued as late as 2009 under the new moniker, the Family International. The family claimed that any form of sexual conduct with a minor was strictly forbidden, but the evidence that thousands of children were sexually abused by cult members is overwhelming. And then they're going through their sources right here. But yeah. So that is 16 intriguing cults that I thought were interesting. And I do have some plans for the future to go a little bit deeper into a few of these. Shinryoko, I definitely want to look a little deeper into that one for sure. And well, that's all we got for today. So thank you for coming to hang out. I hope you had a great time. Hope you learned something. I learned a lot today. I learned that, thugs actually came from a cult, which actually kind of makes a lot of sense if you actually think about it. So, I hope you enjoyed our time here today. Thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. And as always, why be boring when you can be uncanny?